Let's talk about an invention that is so simple, so easy to overlook. You'd be forgiven for thinking it was always just there. But this one little piece of metal, this simple loop, didn't just tweak how people rode horses. Oh no. It completely remade warfare. It built and broke empires, and it literally forged the medieval world as we know it. I mean, really try to picture this. You're on a horse, no saddle, just a blanket maybe, and you're at a full gallop. Now try to swing a heavy sword or pull back a powerful bow. How do you not fall off? How do you put any real force into your attack? For thousands of years, this was the central, incredibly difficult problem for anyone fighting on horseback. Before the stirrup, staying on a horse in combat was basically an Olympic-level feat of gymnastics. You had to grip the horse with your thighs for dear life. All your stability, everything, came from pure leg and core strength. It was exhausting, and it meant you could never really commit your full body to an attack, because a powerful swing could send you flying right off your own mount. I mean, the difference is just night and day. On one side, you have this wobbly, unstable platform where your legs are basically clamps. On the other, with stirrups, you suddenly have a solid, stable base to fight from. Your hands are free, your body can pivot, and a whole universe of new, powerful tactics just explodes into existence. This wasn't just a minor upgrade, it was a total revolution. So how did we get here? Well, this game-changing technology didn't just appear overnight. It was a slow, gradual process, an evolution of a really simple idea. What if the rider had a place to put their feet? The whole story seems to start around the 2nd century BCE in India with this thing, the toe stirrup. And it's exactly what it sounds like, a little loop for your big toe. Now, it definitely helps with balance, makes mounting easier, but you can imagine trying to brace for a cavalry charge with just your big toe. Yeah, not gonna work. It was a great first step, but it wasn't the final answer. You can actually watch the idea get refined over centuries. From that toe loop in India, the concept travels to China, and that's where it really matures. At first, you see a single stirrup, mostly used like a little stepladder to get on the horse. But then, by 322 CE, bam, we find the first paired set of stirrups. This is the real deal, the mature design built for riding and, more importantly, for fighting. And from there, it's nomadic groups like the Avars who bring this incredible technology west, right into the heart of Europe. And once that mature design was in place, the first and most explosive impact was on the battlefield. The stirrup didn't just help the rider fight better, it fundamentally transformed the rider into the weapon. What the stirrup did was solve that core stability problem. By letting a rider stand and brace against the force of a blow, it effectively fused them to the horse. They became one single unified weapon system. All the momentum, all the kinetic energy of a half-ton animal charging at 30 miles an hour could now be channeled through the tip of a spear. This new reality gave rise to a terrifyingly effective new tactic: shock combat. And it's exactly what it sounds like. We're not talking about skirmishing anymore. We're talking about a wall of armored men on horseback crashing into a line of infantry like a freight train, using their combined mass and lances to literally shatter enemy formations on impact. And just how powerful was this? Well, military historians have run the numbers. A rider braced in stirrups could deliver an impact with over 200 times the energy of a foot soldier. Let that sink in. Not double, not 10 times, 200 times the force. That is an absolutely insane advantage from a couple of metal loops. So in the real world, what did this look like? Well, suddenly you could wield these huge, heavy lances designed for one thing: impact. You could swing a sword or an axe with all your might and not worry about falling. Mounted archers could stand and shoot with way more accuracy. And since your legs weren't busy gripping, you could encase yourself in much heavier armor. In a blink of an eye, cavalry went from being a scouting or flanking force to being the undisputed king of the battlefield. But here's the thing about a military revolution: its effects never, ever stay on the battlefield. This new way of fighting was incredibly powerful, but it was also incredibly expensive, and that staggering cost would reshape an entire society. You can follow the logic pretty clearly. First, the stirrup makes heavy cavalry the most important unit in the army. Second, outfitting just one of these guys with the war horse, the armor, the weapons, the training is astronomically expensive. So how does a king or a lord build an army? They can't just pay cash. So third, they pay with the most valuable thing they have:
land. They grant these parcels of land, called fiefs, in exchange for a promise of military service. And that leads right to the final step, the birth of a new social class, a military aristocracy that owns land and fights for a living. You know them as knights. And if you think I'm exaggerating the cost, get this. There's a record from the 8th century about a guy named Eisenhard. To afford just a basic horse and a sword, not even the full suit of armor or a top-tier warhorse, he had to sell his family's land and a slave. This is why war became the exclusive job of the rich. The average person simply couldn't afford the buy-in.
So you see this massive shift. The old Roman army was built on the backs of its infantry, its citizen soldiers. But the new medieval army, the one made possible by the Stirrup, is completely centered on its elite, aristocratic, heavy cavalry. The very foundation of society and how it organized for war was turned completely upside down.
But the story doesn't stop with knights and feudalism. The Stirrup's impact was just as deep in the civilian world. It changed how ordinary people traveled, how they traded, and how they connected with the world around them.
It's simple, really. Stirrups just make riding a horse so much easier and way less tiring. So long-distance travel suddenly became a real possibility for a lot more people, not just soldiers. We're talking merchants, messengers, missionaries, scholars. They could all go further, faster, and more safely than ever. This was a huge boost for things like the Silk Road, and it sped up the spread of everything from goods to ideas to religions.
And this wasn't a small change. With stirrups, a person on horseback could easily double, sometimes even triple, the distance they could cover in a single day. Think about what that really means. A journey that used to take a month might now take just 10 days. The world didn't actually get smaller, but for the people living in it, it sure started to feel that way.
And that's the bottom line. By breaking down the barrier of physical distance, the humble stirrup helped weave the world together in a new way. It was a catalyst for connection, for trade, for cultural exchange on a scale that was just impossible before. All from giving people a simple place to put their feet. The historian Joseph Needham really nailed it. He basically said it's hard to find any other invention that's so incredibly simple in its design, but had such a massive, cascading, domino-like effect on pretty much every part of history. Which kind of leaves you with one last question to chew on. We can look back now and see the stirrup's impact so clearly, but what are the simple, almost invisible inventions of our time? What's the little thing happening right now under the radar that's quietly building a foundation for a future we can't even imagine yet? What's our stirrup?